Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Too Opinionated, where today I'm speaking with actress Viva Bianca. Welcome, Viva.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy you came on. We've been trying to kind of set it up for, I don't know, a month or so, and just we rescheduled a few times, but we did it. We made it.
We did. I put everything down to COVID. It's like, sorry, it's tricky this week. COVID.
Gosh. This is awful to say because I would give anything to have this nonsense behind all of us, but COVID has actually been very helpful to the podcast because everybody's at home. So when we ask for, to speak with somebody, we get a lot more yeses because everybody's like, oh yeah, I don't have anything to do. Let's talk. So that's been good, but I would give all that up to just go back to some semblance of normal.
Yes. Wouldn't we all? Yeah.
Yeah. So you and I were talking off camera, and Australia, where you're at, is pretty much finished with this nonsense. I mean, you're still wearing masks, but you don't really have the new cases like we're having this spike, and you pretty much eliminated it. So
yeah, well, they call it COVID normal here. Where we've kind of in the state of Victoria where I live, in Melbourne, we're at 0 new cases a day, and it's been that way for well over 2 weeks. But that was after a really hardcore stage 4 lockdown, which was not pleasant. And so, yeah, they've definitely got it under control here. The leadership took a kind of preventative, very cautious approach, which is sort of the opposite to the United States.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, I actually own a home in California and have been living there up until this year, so I get it. I fully get it. Oh my goodness, my heart goes out to so many of my friends over there.
I know. It's it's been a difficult year. Hopefully we got a vaccine coming early next year at least. That would but then you still have to get it out to everybody. And that's not going to be
that's what everyone's saying it, but that in and of itself could take
months.
Just
could take a year.
Manufactured and then distributed to everyone. And then, I mean, what happens with all the people who don't want to take it? Like, what happens
I wondered that too. What
society not taking it?
I wondered that too. Do they? I guess if half take it, that half wouldn't get it, right? Supposedly. But then,
don't they say apparently the children wouldn't be getting it? And so, if there's people like walking around the community who haven't had the vaccine, doesn't that mean they could spread it to children? I mean, look, I know so little about that side of things.
Well, they could.
Actually, a really close girlfriend the other day told me that she wouldn't take it if and when it comes out. And I was really shocked, and like my knee-jerk reaction was to be quite judgy about that.
Right.
I'm like, well, why on earth wouldn't you take it? However, a few weeks later, I kept sort of thinking about what she'd said, and her reasoning was, well, they're rushing it, and it's my body, and I'm not sure how I feel about putting this thing in my body that hasn't properly been tested.
Yeah. Well, and you hear a lot of horror stories about what exactly that vaccine is and what it's going to do, and that it, might change people's DNA, and so there's and a lot of that. Who knows if that stuff's
well, and then there's even crazier conspiracy theories that they're going to plant some.
Oh, it's the chip.
Chip, and then control us. I'm not sure I'm quite going there, but at all. But I do get the fact that like normally vaccines take a lot longer than just a year or two to like properly test the side effects. And
that's the scary part, I think, with all of this. We don't know what type of long-term effects, it's actually COVID is having on people. Even the ones that have recovered, we don't know long-term what that's going to do. And then with the vaccine, who knows what kind of effect that's. A lot of times you do that stuff and it causes other side effects, or down the road it causes you to have problems that you don't know about initially. It's kind of, I think the whole thing's kind of scary.
It is. And when people, for instance, refer to COVID as just a bad flu, I think that that's really insulting to the people who've had amputations and other
Right.
utterly life-destroying.
Yeah, you just hear these horror stories. It's
And I know someone personally who did die, having been in a
Oh, I'm
coma
so
for
sorry.
90 days and had an amputation and all many other serious chronic health conditions as a result of getting COVID. And so, I think it's
Awful.
perfectly evident to me it's much worse than a bad flu. I mean, the death toll alone speaks for itself.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Terrible. Okay, now we got to move on. We can't. We got to talk happier stuff.
About COVID.
I'm so sad. We're done. This podcast is over. It's so it's so terrible. But yeah, hopes and prayers. Hopefully we get past it soon. I'd love to be in a situation that you're at in Australia. That would be such a relief, but we're so far away from that.
Yeah, I think no, here's one takeaway. Regardless of where you are in the world, because everyone's been affected by it by what's been happening this year and this pandemic in one way or another. And I think that the takeaway is we as a civilization needed some kind of wake-up call. We've been living this fast-paced, consumerist, capitalist kind of game.
Right.
And if anything, I mean, what I'm saying is not new. This has kind of been a circulating idea this year. It's just like it's kind of brought us back to perhaps what's important in our lives: family, community, even self-care, like coming back to ourselves. And I think in that sense, there has to be a takeaway, right?
Well, it has to be something good to come out of it.
Meaningful relationships. I mean, that in and of itself is important.
Yeah, that I love that. That's really good. We got to look at. There's got to be a few positives. Good job.
Okay, moving on.
All right. So here we go. So let's start here. What got you into the entertainment business? What made you want to become an actor?
That's such a great question that I haven't been asked in a long time.
Thank you. That's what I do.
I like that. I like unique questions. I was brought into a family that is extremely artistic, and my father is a film composer. He's from Poland, but he lives in Australia. He immigrated to Australia in his mid-20s, where he met my mother. And my mother is a visual artist. My father is a film composer. And so I grew up in a home that was really eclectic and arty. And there were always, or frequently, film directors and producers and musicians and even actors sitting around the dinner table. And his recording studio was at the back of the house. So we kind of just had a streamline of creatives coming in and out.
Yeah.
So I think that was the first thing. It was just really available to me. And then my parents also sent me to a private school that was very performing arts focused. So I had another strong kind of platform to trial my interest there, I guess. Really, since as long as I can remember, and I mean like really since as long as I can remember being a young girl, I was that kid that would rally the cousins together or the family friends on, family vacations and put on a play, like make all the kids, I'd direct everyone in the play. All the parents had to buy tickets and sit down on the couches in the living room, and someone would be operating the lights and someone would be operating the music and the show would begin. So I just think like it really has, some people say, I don't know if you've ever heard of people who talk about how they don't really know what their thing is, like what their calling or their passion or their dream is. But for me, it really was always that thing I just always did. I didn't have to find it. It was always like something I did.
That's so great.
About 3. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so great. So you were in my family, my cousins who were kind of along those lines, they were always dragging us into some type of play that we had to perform in front of the family. I hated that. I was always the one that ended up being a tree or maybe a shepherd. I was the non-speaking parts because I
That's
was
cute.
I was just like, I don't want any part of that. But no,
That was like my brother. So he ended up operating the light.
See, I didn't get that option. I should have done that. I'd have happily operated the lights. So are you musical as well?
Yeah, so my brother is also a composer, musician, music producer, and my husband is also a composer, songwriter,
Neat.
music producer. So I just like have literally surrounded myself by musicians. I myself am not a musician, but I did grow up playing the piano and the oboe. And now I don't really play them. So I would be lying if I said I was a musician, but I'm musical.
What made you choose the oboe?
Oh, I didn't choose the oboe. My dad chose the oboe. Another fun fact about having a musician composer dad is instead of being like all the other girls, where like certainly at my school, all the other girls were having flute lessons or clarinet lessons,
Yes.
quite feminine wind instruments. I was the only kid at my school who had oboe lessons, and that's a double reed instrument. And when you're about 13 and you're learning to play a double reed instrument, you don't actually have the muscle in your cheeks to blow that kind of. You sound like a dying duck for the first 3 years playing the oboe, so it's not pretty. It takes so long to master the oboe, and then it sounds amazing. I mean, it's really beautiful, but not the first 3 years.
Well, you don't hear of too many young kids, boy or girl, picking up the oboe. That's not usually what's chosen for the the high school band or whatever.
Unless your dad's a Polish film composer and wants his story to be interesting.
What does he play?
He's a piano player.
Okay, he's a piano player. Okay, but he chose the oboe for you.
Yeah, go figure.
Yeah. That's awesome. Could you pick one up though? Oh Lord, no. And I kind of like I'm kind of like you without the acting ability, in that I've surrounded myself with musicians. So my family was everybody in it was involved in the church. My grandfather was the pastor, so everybody played an instrument or sang in the church, all that. And then my wife and our children, all of them musical. I didn't get any of it, none of it. It all skipped me. But I appreciate it. I love listening to it. So but no, I never had that. Could you pick up an oboe right now and play it?
No, because I quit when I was about 16, and that's a long time ago now.
Yeah, you probably don't have the muscles anymore.
Yeah. I could more play the piano than I could the oboe.
Yeah.
I can play a little bit on the piano,
Yeah, well, that's good. Yeah, piano is a little easier. It's there's a little bit of muscle memory there where you could.
Yeah, and I also think like what a great life skill, because you can walk into any room or home with a piano and just kind of have a little jam. I think like my husband, who is also a piano player, and he's like a really good piano player. He kind of that's his theory, that the first instrument anyone should be introduced to is the piano, because it's like you get the real basics of music on the piano, but then it's also an incredible life skill. It's kind of like a second language. If you can just like bust out some French, it's like kudos to you. But a bit of something.
It gives you a little cachet, I think. Yeah. That's right. That's right. Yeah, you can sit down because all of these jerks in my family, all of them, they all play by ear, so they can pick up any instrument and just start playing. It's amazing. And I applaud loudly. That's what I can offer them. Love and applause. Well, now that's really great. So you went to a private school. Did you participate in any of the arts at that school?
Oh yeah, so we did so many school productions, from Shakespeare to contemporary plays and musicals. And then when I think I was in year 11 or 12, which is like grade 11 or 12, I think I directed some of the younger
Oh,
students.
wow.
Yeah, no, I was always like right in the theater crowd. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you, or do you sing? Did you dance? Anything, did you do musicals, anything like that?
I'll tell you a really funny story about that. I love to sing. I really love to sing. However, one year the head of drama or whatever at my school
Yeah.
announced that the musical, every year there was a big school musical and it had got a lot of money thrown into it, and it was at a big national theater, and that was My Fair Lady. Do you know My Fair Lady?
Of course. Yeah. That's a
I don't know.
classic.
No, sometimes I mention a pop culture reference and Americans be like,
Yeah.
and
What are you
it'll
talking about? Yeah.
drop.
We know My Fair Lady.
Okay, cool. So I auditioned for Eliza Doolittle.
Oh,
Obviously, I
yeah.
auditioned for
Yeah,
Eliza.
of course. Why? Of course.
But that's a big singing role.
That's a big singing role.
I mean, it's such a big singing role that in the movie of My Fair Lady, Audrey Hepburn didn't actually sing.
Yeah.
But she's such an amazing actress. And
she's amazing.
Had all the screen presence one would need for that role. They cast her anyway and used a different voice. So here's the deal. I auditioned for the role among a group of other girls in my age group, and I didn't get it. And I get offered the queen of something, and she has one line. And and the rest, I was just going to be in the chorus, like joining the group, singing the chorus.
Ouch.
And I was in year 11, and I was also going to be playing Lady Macbeth later that year in the theater play, in the Shakespeare play. And so I thought, and like I'm beyond the chorus. I'm beyond like a one-line role. Like if I can't I'm out. I've got to focus on my studies. So I wrote a letter to the drama teacher who was directing this play, My Fair Lady. And I explained it very formally and respectfully that I'm going to step out of this one. Like I'm not going to participate in the musical. And she calls me in the next day into her office, and she has the letter on her desk, and she just points to the letter and she says, "What's this?" And I was like, "That's the letter I wrote you to say that I can't be in the play." She said, "No, Viva, this is shit. You are not pulling out of the musical. I'm going to make you participate in this musical regardless of the role you're playing. Stick through with what you've committed to." Anyway, the long and short of it is I was in the musical, but I played a tiny bit part. And the other thing was she pointed out to me that I'm not a singer. She was like, "I know you feel kind of butthurt that you didn't get a singing, you didn't get a lead role in the musical."
Yeah.
She's like, "Eva, you're not a singer."
Oh, ouch. Oh, that's terrible, but okay. So you didn't waste any more time.
Every time my husband will tease me about singing, because he believes that he's got like a pitch perfect ear, and he probably does. He's very good. Every time he'll tease me about it, my comeback line is, "Singing is a human right. Everyone has the right to express
everybody
their voice."
Oh shoot. How did you two meet?
Oh, well, we just met. We met in Los Angeles. I think I had been living there maybe 3 years. Maybe, yeah.
Well, that's great. Yes, that's really great. So you met there and then brought him back to Australia with you?
Well, we lived in LA together for a few years, and we had both of our children there, and they're still really young. And then we bought a property in Joshua Tree, which is about 3 hours from in the Mojave Desert, and then we still have that property there. So he's just moved to Australia. He doesn't even have like residency here. We've got to like apply for his get him set up.
Has he picked up the accent?
Not yet. Although apparently, to some of his American friends on the phone think that some of his intonations are already changing. You know, like there's like an upward inflection that Aussies will do. Like Americans, my US dialect coach at drama school used to always tell me, Americans don't ask questions, they make statements. So it would be like, right? Whereas Australians will say, yeah, I really want to go there. Like I'm actually making a statement, but it sounds like a question because I'm sort of going up like that.
Right.
Funny.
So if I go to Australia and I start putting everything in a question with an up inflection, will I fit right in?
You'll fit right in, yeah.
Fit right in. See, I didn't realize that. I knew, but I didn't realize that I had, kind of a thick West Virginia accent until I started speaking with everybody out west or outside of the US. And I was like, yeah, I don't sound like any of them. So yeah, I've realized that I've got a little bit of an accent.
Yeah, it's incredible to me actually how diverse the accents are across the US.
Yeah, like, they really are.
Imagine being in the one country, people could sound so extraordinarily different. You know? Like for instance, my husband's from Boston, and that's a totally different accent.
Oh my gosh. Does he have a typical Boston accent?
No, he doesn't. He's been living in LA for 12 years.
Yeah.
And he, there's that towny accent, like they'd say like parky car.
Yes.
I'm not doing it very well, but that's a bit Australian because we don't pronounce the R. Like we'd say parky car. and like a Western would say park your car.
Park your car. Yeah.
Park your car. Like the R is right there. But if you're from Boston, it's like park your car.
You did that pretty well. That was pretty good. So can he pull it out though? Can he pull out the Boston accent when he wants to?
Yeah, he's really good at accents. To his credit, he loves the Aussie accent. Oh my goodness, he's wonderful at mimicking my mother. That's my mother's his muse, his accent muse.
Does she appreciate him mimicking her?
Oh, he doesn't understand. She's not fully aware that his Australian accent that he puts on as a joke is based on her. I'm assuming she'll never listen to this podcast. She's not a podcast. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you better hope not. Oh shoot. What do your children call your mother?
Oh, they call her Musha. That's because I'm half Polish on my dad's side. And actually in Polish, mother is mamush. And so from that, my mum, who actually is Australian, not Polish, she just said when she became a grandmother, I'll be Musha.
I like that.
Moosha. Yeah, so that's what she is to my children.
I like that. I'm a pawpaw to my grandkids. I'm pawpaw. Pawpaw.
Pawpaw?
Pawpaw.
That's cute. I think you're already a grandfather. You look too young.
Thank you so much. That's the clip I've been waiting for. I'm going to run that everywhere now.
That's great. You definitely do. Like I would say you look like maybe you could have kids, in middle school.
Oh my gosh. Really? Thank you so much.
Adult children with their own children.
Yes, they've all grown up so fast. So the youngest is getting ready to turn 20. The oldest is 26.
I see.
They've grown up very fast. So they call me Pawpaw, and they call my wife Abuela. She's half Mexican, so she went with Abuela.
Yeah, nice.
So that's been pretty. Of course, none of them are speaking yet. They can that's what we call each other around them, so they can recognize when you say that they know who to look at.
And they will. Before you know it, they'll be saying those
They'll
words.
be speaking for too long.
My son is only just turned 2, and he is saying them so many words. I mean, he gets so much. Oh my goodness, they're so aware.
I know.
At this stage,
like sponges. So much fun.
This rapid rate. My dad told me 2 days ago, I think that was, he told me that when they were taking care of my kids the other day, that my children were repeating a conversation. They were mimicking my husband and I, and it was an argument we'd had.
Oh, that's
And
hilarious.
my dad was like, "This is just a little warning to you. Like, they're not too young to notice. They're picking up everything."
They're listening.
But you know that you've got big kids. I'm sure
Yeah.
you know that more than I do. They model so much of themselves on us.
They do. I like to think I have learned from my mistakes as a new dad. As a new granddad, I think I'm a little better prepared than I was 26 years ago to be a new dad. Because you're just learning. You're kind of learning with the kids. Yeah,
I remember when we had my daughter, and she was this tiny little newborn baby, and we were like, "Are you sure we can leave the hospital now? Like, are we like?" Should the nurse come with us?
I know. And you're always checking on them, make sure they're still breathing, and you're afraid to put them down. The first one. When the second one comes, you're much easier. You're like, they'll be fine.
And I think as a result, my son, being our second born, it's just incredible to me how much less you hover over the second one.
Yeah.
And therefore their experience of life is quite different. And especially like with us, we had our son really soon after my daughter. There wasn't a huge break. So she was still a baby when my son came along. And so that meant that she needed so much still. I mean, of course, all children need a lot, but she was really the baby who couldn't really express herself. So my son never got that like one-on-one with us, that true like doting. Like we didn't notice all the little moments of him awakening, and you do with your firstborn. Like they're like this precious flower. You're just observing every single moment. But as a result, the second one becomes more resilient, I believe.
Well, they do. They tend to advance quicker. And a lot of it, I think they mimic their sibling, their older siblings. So they tend to pick things up a little quicker.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's fun.
To kind of figure it out for themselves in a way, which makes them resilient. I'm a second born, so I'm really just speaking from experience.
No resentment or anything. Yeah, I was the oldest. By a couple years. I had one brother. Or still have, but I was the oldest. Yeah, and he doesn't let me forget it ever.
The second one does, you see. That's mom and dad to themselves.
I always remember when I started driving, and he was still too young to do that. They increased my allowance a little bit. It wasn't much, but a little bit. To help me out a little bit with gas and stuff. He has still not given up thinking that was just the worst thing they've ever done to him. It was so unfair that I got whatever it was, $2 extra a week in allowance. Oh, shoot. So do you speak other languages?
It's a really weird one, but I can speak very good Japanese because that was the language that was deemed important when I was a schoolgirl, primary school and high school in Australia, because at the time Japan was really positioned to be a prominent world power. Right? Like now all the children in Australia learn Mandarin.
Ni hao.
Yeah. So anyway,
that's the only word I know.
I speak some Japanese, and I have a few words of Polish up my sleeve because my dad's Polish, and I have cousins.
Well, that was what I was curious about, if you spoke any Polish. Yeah, but Japanese, I would never have guessed that. I would have thought French or Spanish, something.
I wish. Well, I was studying French. And when I was in about year 8, which is grade 8, 8th grade.
8th grade.
I quit French because the French teacher at my school was really creepy and not appropriate. So unfortunately, that's why I don't speak.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's terrible. Yeah. I don't blame you. I'd have dropped out. I just
Yeah,
stopped
but it's
that.
that one bad experience, like teachers actually have a lot of influence over children,
Absolutely, they do.
and that
Yeah.
one bad experience can kind of turn you off that entire subject.
Yeah.
You know, whether it was, I don't know, math or history or science or French. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I'm sure that's probably what kept me from loving science. It was probably those teachers.
You're like, that's what it was.
That's what it was. I probably would have been great at it otherwise.
Yeah. There you go.
So, what was your first acting role professionally?
Oh, good question. I got I think my first TV role was a recurring role on an Australian series called Eugenie Sandler, Private Investigator.
Oh,
Eugenie
great.
Sandler. And I played a princess. I played a European princess. Um, and because it was kind of a little bit fantasy, well, clearly, it was a bit fantasy. And I played a princess, and that was fun. And I'll never forget having a laughing fit, like a total, unashamed laughing fit on set with having to do a dancing sequence at like
Yeah.
a royal festivity thing, a royal party that was happening on the show. And we had to do this choreographed dance, and me and the guy that I was acting opposite couldn't stop laughing. And eventually the director actually yelled at us in front
Oh
of the
no.
whole set. Like, it was enough. And what's really funny is there's one other time in my career where that has happened. And that was with Andy Whitfield on Spartacus, where a laughing fit went beyond professional appropriateness and we couldn't stop laughing. And so finally, because we were running overtime, and overtime on a show like Spartacus means, well, on any show, means money.
Yeah.
You're paying everyone and everything. And so, yeah, it was finally like, that's enough. Everyone stop laughing. You know, like, we've got to get this shot. So that at that point, you're like, deep breath. Like, really
it's hard when you get tickled, though. It's tough to rein it. Once you kind of lose control, it's hard to rein it back. Because then everything's funny. Everything.
No. Oh, this is the for me. Like or a sore spot, I should say, is the whole being triggered into a laughing spell.
Yeah.
And then not being able to get out. Oh, that's bad.
My father, he always tells this story. He went to a Jerry Lewis movie when he was courting my mother. With that, I don't know if you know who Jerry Lewis was. He was a comedian from back in the 50s and 60s, but he got tickled in the movie theater and laughed so hard that he passed out. And they were just starting to date. So he's laughing, passes out, and just fell into the aisle. So I don't know if that helped him. They had to come and help him. I don't know exactly who came, but they had to wake him back up. I don't know if that helped him with my mother or hurt him, but
I don't think it's sensitive, but that's a funny scene for a movie.
Right?
Wouldn't that'd be really good in a comedy? Like on like a second date?
Oh, it'd be hilarious. Well, and apparently he had that happen a couple times. He used to, around that same time, he was a basketball coach, and he played poker once a week with the other basketball coaches in the area. And same thing, did that at one of the poker events, and passed out and just fell over there. I think they were playing at the firehouse, and he just fell over, and they had to call my mother to come and get him. So, so I don't know. I've never seen him do it, so he must have figured out what caused it and stopped laughing so hard. But yeah, but I used to know the actual scene and movie that cracked him up so bad, but I've forgotten it. I've forgotten it now because I'm dying to just show it to him again and see if it still makes him
you
laugh.
don't want to pass out.
I don't know, kinda, but probably not. He's getting up there now. We want to gotta be careful.
We don't want to push that one.
So I got a non-acting question for you since you're in Australia. Have you ever played Risk, the board game Risk?
I have not.
Okay, so do you know what that is? Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Okay, so Risk, it's called the Game of World Domination. So it's a game, it's got a map of the world, and you pick cards at the beginning, and you get control of certain countries, and then basically you're rolling dice to see if you can take over countries.
Okay.
Called Risk. So I was curious because in the US, everybody always wants Australia because Australia's kind of off to themselves. So you can kind of take over Australia, and then it's very hard for anybody to really get to you on the Risk map. It's difficult for them to get to you. So it's real easy to defend. So if you control a country, you get extra stuff. It helps you. So everybody always wants Australia. So I was curious. I was like, I wonder what they do in Australia. Do they do the same thing and everybody tries to get their own country, or do they say, I don't want Australia? I never get to talk to anybody in Australia, so I thought of that.
I'll ask around. I'll get back to you on that one.
Now, when you're back in LA, we're coming over. We're bringing Risk.
All right, deal.
I'm gonna teach you how to play it.
Once we have a vaccine, we can.
I'm sure it'll be like 2 years from now. But
Risk.
It's Risk tournament. We're doing it. See, I know you've never been asked that question.
I've not.
Yeah.
That was an original one too.
That's an original one. Yeah, that was one I just had. See, that's what I do. I come up with the really hard hitting questions.
No, I'm riveted.
So I have to ask about Spartacus. I gotta ask because it was when it came out here, it was so different from anything else that was on TV. It was so much, it was so violent, and there was so much sex and gore, and the language in it was actually pretty awesome because it was almost kind of Shakespearean, and the language was very flowery language, which was pretty cool.
That was Stephen DeKnight. He's an amazing writer.
Yeah, the writing. That's what I was going to say. The writing, it was just, the dialogue was just amazing. But how did that come about that you ended up, joining the cast?
Well, firstly, as someone who had studied Shakespeare so extensively and is such a lover of language and writing and Shakespeare, I will say that was one of the great thrills for me, was reading the first episode, the pilot episode, and then as it kind of played out, I really felt like there was a dance between me and the writer's room on Spartacus, because they could see how much we love language, and Ilithyia had some great lines and some great.
Oh yeah, she did.
Because she was an aristocrat who could use language to work in her favor and get what she wanted. But yeah, I was living in Sydney at the time, and it was just an audition. It was an out of the blue audition where I had to self-tape. No, I didn't self-tape. No. They'd hired a casting agent in Sydney. Her name's Faith Martin. And I went in and auditioned, and she put me on tape, and she sent it over to the producers, and then they wanted to see me again. But a really scary thing actually happened in that audition, and I cried. So this is a true story. The very first audition for Spartacus, because I then had a few auditions after that, which is normally what happens. On TV, you kind of don't land the role from one audition yet.
Right.
Come back and do a few more. But the first audition, they said, they had told me to prepare it with an American accent, a US accent. And so that's what I'd done. And I'd come in prepared. I think it was 3 scenes. And I walk in the room, and the casting agent says, they've changed their minds. Can you read this in a British accent?
Well, that's not fair.
I said, I'm going to need a minute. Like, give me a minute to kind of translate all this into a different accent. I can do the British accent pretty well because I was trained at drama school. However, that's not the point. You kind of learn the dialogue in a certain accent.
Of course.
And so I then was like, well, I've had a minute or two to look over this. I'm just going to have to wing it now. And so I just got up and we did it. And I thought I'd blown it. I was just like, that sucks. I felt like the whole opportunity had been sabotaged. it's no one's fault. It was just, that was just what it was. And I was like, I'm going to put this down to a bad audition. Like, these
Oh
things
yeah.
happen. And I literally remember walking to the park with my boyfriend at the time, years ago, and crying. I actually cried because I like, oh my God, awful actor moment. So you just feel like the biggest mess up. And you just can't believe that happened, which sounds so silly. I mean, it's particularly silly because I ended up getting the role. But it was silly at the time even to cry about it because it's just another audition. So lo and behold, a week later, I get the call back. And they're like, yeah, they just have a few notes. Can you come back in? So I came back in, we had a few notes. There was a bit of specific direction this time. And it was, of course, in the British accent. So I'd been prepared now for that. And then that was it. And then I think a call a week after that I'd been offered the role. And yeah, it was so exciting. And I think what was really confronting at the time was the nudity. I couldn't believe.
It's just so much. That's what I was going to ask, is when you were reading that script, I mean, it's just like there was so much of everything.
Yeah, and there wasn't really anything to compare it to. So then they would the producers did send us some kind of reference material of what they were trying to achieve. Yeah. So one of the references that was sent was True Blood. That was a pretty kind of premium cable series at the time. Remember, like, as you'd said, there really wasn't much of this content out there. Now there's a lot of content. Like, Game of Thrones came after Spartacus.
Right. That's right.
I believe it because Spartacus first aired in 2010. Am I right?
Oh yeah, it came out before.
Yeah, it came out before. Yeah. So yeah, we were really kind of testing the boundaries majorly. So yes, they showed me True Blood. They showed me Rome.
Yeah, Rome's a great show. Yeah.
I believe on HBO.
Did they show you 300 maybe?
Yeah. I 100, and then there was one other. Now, what was it? I think The Tudors. That had also come out.
Tudors, so yeah.
There was sort of some sensationalism happening in those shows, also nudity and violence. So that was kind of what I had to work with. But it felt like Spartacus was taking it even a step further than each of those shows.
Was. Yeah. It was a lot.
It was a constant negotiation between the actors and the producers to kind of figure out where the sweet spot was.
Where the line was, yeah.
Being to do what they were being asked to do, but also that the sex scenes or the nudity was motivated enough that it didn't just feel like pure pornography. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
yeah, of course. I thought that I mean everybody in the show looks good. Nobody was ever made to look bad. You know, there was no bad looking scenes in that show.
Interesting, because Rob Tapert, one of the executive producers, who we all had a lot to do with on the show, he said that to me, I think, at the very beginning. I believe, as you said that, his voice echoed in my ear, and it was something along the lines of, Viva, we'll never make you look bad.
Yeah.
Like, our job is to make you look great.
Yeah, well, they did that. I think that was, that was pretty commendable, because a lot of shows don't. A lot of shows don't, I think, take the time to really make sure everybody is comfortable, and and just because it to me, I think it would be very difficult to be scantily clad or naked, but having to look just fierce, like you just owned it all the time. I think that I would have trouble with that. That would be very difficult.
Well, it took a lot of self-talk. It took a lot of you couldn't just do that. It took rehearsals and consultation, and then a lot of personal work to get to that place where you were owning it and feeling completely in the moment. So something about me is actually I'm actually an introvert. So
me too.
So you'll understand what I'm about to say. I'm an outgoing introvert. So that is to say, I get my energy from being alone. I'm really comfortable in my own space, and I don't need to be around people very much. However, when I'm around them, I'm pretty confident. But the other thing is I am terrified about public speaking. I don't like speaking in front of people at all. I can be quite shy, in other words.
Yeah.
However, when I'm acting, I'm another character, I'm not myself, it wouldn't matter how many people were watching. I don't feel any sense of, I'm not thinking about all the eyes on me. I just am thinking about the story that I'm part of and what my character's trying to do.
That's great.
So that's how I kind of would deal with a lot of those situations. But the other thing is, and it's really important for people to know, when you're doing nudity or sex scenes in film and TV, and this is not just Spartacus, this is everything I've ever been part of.
Yeah.
They do what's called a closed set. So only the very essential crew members and actors are on set. And so so if there's anyone who, because normally on Spartacus, so that was a bigger budget production, like there's a lot of extra crew standing around, and there's just it's kind of high production value and high concept, let's say. So there was a lot going on, off camera that you couldn't see to create that world. And so when there were sex scenes or any kind of nudity, that was brought down to a skeleton crew where there were very few people left on set.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Yeah. It was handled pretty sensitively, considering.
Yeah. It'd be difficult because it was, there was something going on in almost every scene. There was some type of nudity, sex, violence, something was happening just all the time in that show, which is part of the reason it was so fun to watch, because it's just something going on all the time. So, I mean, they must have had closed sets half the time on that show.
Well, there wasn't a closed set for the violence, for the action sequences. Because they weren't so exposing. But I'm just talking about the nudity. And like for me, I've had people make jokes before, like, well, did you ever wear a costume? Weren't you just naked all the time? And like the truth is, no, I was dressed most of the time. But I guess people remember the nude stuff the most. But no, most of the time, I mean, I can remember, any actor will tell you this. You'll never forget the days on set where you had to do nudity. I'll remember that till the day I die, right? Because they're so etched in your brain. Because you're on guard, you're protecting yourself. Right?
Sure you are.
And you're exposed. And so I can be certain that those days were quite few and far between, really, when I think about how many days I was actually on set playing Ilithyia. Most of them I was wearing clothes. But I take your point that there's a lot of nudity.
There's a lot of nudity in it. But and I get exactly what you're saying as an introvert, because I'm similar to that. I recharge, I get my energy from being by myself, quiet time, doing the things I like. I don't really need any interaction. But I do pretty good in if it's settings where I'm familiar with the people I'm around, I'm fine. I'm pretty outgoing. But if it's a setting where I'm, speaking in front of a group that I don't really know or something like that, I've in the past, I've really struggled with some of that. Podcasting has helped with that because, I'm talking to people all the time, and I don't know why exactly, because it's not like it's a large group that I'm talking with. It's usually just one-on-one or maybe a couple people, but that seemed to help me. I don't do nearly as bad speaking in front of conferences or whatever it is since we started.
You and I thrive in this particular setting because it's one-on-one. Introverts love a good one-on-one.
Love the one-on-ones.
Like if I can have the option, for instance, for a dinner, like, so it's my birthday today, I would choose.
Happy birthday. I can't believe I didn't mention that at the beginning. We talked about it, but that was off camera. And how terrible a podcast host am I to bring you on here on your birthday? That's just terrible.
You didn't know, and it's fine. I do have to jump soon because I am being taken out to lunch. However, I will say this. I would opt on my birthday to have a small group, like even just 2, 3, 4, 5 max people for a dinner. rather than, there are people who like really love the big group vibe. But see,
Yeah,
for
of
me,
course.
I don't really get to talk to anyone. Like I'm just overwhelmed by the group the whole time, and I don't have any meaningful connection. So for me, it's all about meaningful connection. I'd rather a good one-on-one,
I know.
one-on-two,
I know. I'm the same way. So, all right. So we got to wrap up pretty soon, but I wanted to, your character on Spartacus, she was so mean at times. She was just very tough sometimes to deal with. And then she had such a horrible death at the end of it the whole thing, I think that had to be such a great character to play. Because I can't imagine, it had to be that character had to be just completely different than how you normally are. I think that would be fun to play.
Yeah, she was
Yeah.
so fun to play.
Yeah.
I definitely have nothing but, well, I'll say mostly very positive memories of that. And also just, yeah, it was a treat. It was a really treat. Like every script that we would be handed, I would read what was happening with Ilithyia, and it would either make me laugh or cry or,
Yeah.
So for me, I always, even though she came across to most people as like really mean and vicious and awful, like in a way she was like one of the main villains on the show, really.
At times, yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is I never approached her that way. And I think that that's probably a key to acting, which is if you're playing a pedophile or a murderer or a rapist or whatever this horrible person is, and I'm jumping to the extreme here.
Sure.
The actor playing that role can't be approaching that role as an awful person.
Right.
Because then what we're going to see as the audience is this caricature of an awful bat or a villain.
That's right. That's right.
Like instead, from speaking from experience, I approached Ilithyia with a lot of love and empathy. I deeply wanted to know what had led her to this place in her life where she actually really struggled to empathize. I came to believe she had a personality disorder, like narcissistic personality disorder. Not different
like
to
that.
something we're all quite, familiar with in politics right now. But I wasn't thinking about that at the time, but I was thinking maybe she didn't evolve into a fully rounded human because, well, she had an absent mother. I'm not sure if you remember, but we never really knew about her dad. And that could be really huge for a woman to never have a female role model.
Well, sure.
There was something really fractured and almost infantile about Ilithyia. She just didn't evolve to be a woman that had the complexity that I believe I have, for instance, which is some humility and grace. And however, what was unique there in that particular journey was becoming pregnant and walking the path of becoming a mother, although she never got to fulfill that because of the thing that happened to her.
Oh my gosh, rough.
But throughout her pregnancy, she, I believe, was starting to develop or evolve into some kind of empathetic person, that she was going to be able to have the chance to love someone, to actually love her own baby.
Well, it came across. You were such a terrific actress, because that you definitely ended up, especially those last few episodes, you ended up feeling for her, which isn't easy. That's not easy to do. So you did a great job, kind of bringing it out.
Good feedback, because it's so hard to know. There were certainly episodes where people were like, Ilithyia, she's so like bad, but also a lot of people like, she's so bad she's good. Like she's just deliciously evil. But then, like I said, I never wanted her to just be bad. I was like, she's a human. Your goal has to always be to portray someone real, and even people that you can think of in your personal life or who you observe in pop culture or politics, for instance. You can see that there's always going to be some other dimension there.
That's right.
No one's fully
There's some good in there. Everybody's got some good.
Yeah, and everyone's also walking a path. There's change. People grow and evolve. So I was kind of on that path to like walking a real human path with her, and where were the points where she was growing and changing.
Yeah, that's terrific. Yeah. Okay. So, real quick. Two questions, real quick. Well, one statement, one question. All of the females in the family made me promise to tell you that A Prince for Christmas, their favorite Christmas movie. Love it. Love it. They watch it every year. So they said, make sure you tell, because I was like, yeah, I'm talking, she was on Spartacus, and they're like, I don't know what that is. And I named, I tried the Reckoning and Scorn. So they didn't have any idea and stuff. I was like, well, she was in a Christmas movie, and they're like, oh.
I'll tell them I say hello, and I'm wishing them Thanksgiving and Merry Christmas.
Yeah, I will. And they said, please tell you that you should do more of those. You should do more. More
noted.
Christmas movies. And then the other one, real quick. I just doing my research to talk to you. You were in a movie called Turkey Shoot, where it was kind of like a dystopian sci-fi, which I like that type of movie. So I wanted to ask you about that. Where do I find Turkey Shoot so I can watch it?
I don't know. Have you looked on Netflix?
Well, I did, but maybe I missed it. But I was curious about that one, because I was like, well, that sounds like one I would watch.
Yeah, check it out. They might even have. Oh, I know what it is. In the States, they changed the name to the Elimination Game. So check out.
Oh, the Elimination Game. See, now that's probably the problem. Okay.
Yeah, it might be credited as the Elimination Game on Netflix.
Yeah.
It's either Turkey Shoot or the Elimination Game. Turkey Shoot was the Australian title, but
all right.
and in it,
that's probably it. I will find it now, because you were a commander in that. I saw you played
Navy SEAL.
Ooh, Navy SEAL. Yeah, no, it's cool. I'll look that up.
So a parting fun fact is, it's not been the first time that I have been cast as a really kind of badass ninja type chick.
Really?
And in fact, I can't say much about an upcoming project, but there's a project that I will likely be involved in the new year, where the role is kind of along those lines.
Really?
And it doesn't reflect me at all. Like, I'm not that. I'm kind of like almost the opposite. Like, I'm like the kind of cerebral, quiet.
That's awesome, though.
Feminine woman, but I don't know. I just have this physique, stature that can often be interpreted to play like a pretty badass action chick. So yeah.
Do you get to wear cool ninja costumes
in the new project?
In the new project,
I don't know. I haven't gotten that
okay.
far. I'm not
well, are you having to train?
I will have to. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. A TV show or a movie?
The movie. But
okay, that's all I'll ask. I know. I can't. I know. You can't say anything else. But that. And now we can keep an eye out.
Yeah.
Anything before you go? Anything else that you're working on that we can? And I know it's been kind of a little slower now, but anything you're working on that we can look for you in upcoming?
Well, I'm not sure if you're aware, but I'm a director also, and
I did see that.
Yeah, so I directed a documentary that will hopefully get some kind of distribution after it does the festival circuit next year. But again, it's a pretty unusual time for all movies in theaters. And that's a documentary about youth climate strikes in the United States. So it looks at the movement of young people striking for climate action.
Oh, I love that.
So that's a doc. And then
did your directing grow out of your stint in the 11th grade directing the younger kids?
Good listener. Probably. Yeah, possibly. I feel like I've always
no, that's awesome. Are you taking it? Will it be? I got to go to my first film festival this year, right before COVID. I went to Sundance. Will you be taking it to Sundance?
I hope so. That's my dream.
Oh my
gosh. One of my biggest dreams is a film that I direct, but any film that I'm involved in really can have its premiere at Sundance. I'd love that.
That would be That would be awesome. I will keep an eye out. You have to let me know if it's.
I
if it's gonna be
will.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'll definitely look for it. Well, that's great. I love the fact that you're directing. Do you prefer in front of the camera or behind the camera?
I love behind the camera. I did my master's degree as well in writing, so I'm a writer too. I don't know. I feel like I'm an all-rounder. Like there's another project that one of my best friends and I are developing, and in that I would be writing one of the directors and possibly acting too. So I'm sort of, I don't know, for me it's about the story. Like I'm so
Yeah.
passionate about storytelling and kind of, yeah, breaking new grounds within that paradigm of stories. And I think we need more and more female storytellers, obviously, in the industry. Like they're
Yes,
still really
absolutely.
balanced. In fact, when I reflect on my career to date, still most projects that I've been involved in were directed and mostly written by men.
Yeah.
And obviously things are changing, and that's amazing. But yeah, I'm really excited to kind of be part of that movement of women taking sort of bit more leadership roles behind the camera in film and TV. And but that's not to say that that I don't, enjoy acting too. Like I said, it looks like I'll be doing a really fun project in the new year as an actress. I don't have anything to do with the writing or directing on
Yeah.
that one. So yeah, I think
That's,
it's just case by case specific.
yeah.
I love great
That's
stories.
awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. And I've always found normally, the people I talk with are it's if you're artistic in one way, it tends to come out in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise me that you write and you direct and that you used to play. You're a little more musical when you're younger. None of that surprises me because it's rare when you talk to somebody and they're like, "Yep, this is it. That's all I do. I write, nothing else," because that doesn't happen very often.
Sometimes you meet great actors or film directors, and they're a visual artist, a painter, or a
Yeah,
sculptor.
yeah,
Yeah,
that happens a lot.
it can often express itself in a different art form. Yeah, the creativity, for sure. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This has been, I'm so looking forward to this one. I'm such a fan of yours. And that's part of the reason I love doing this show, because it just lets me be a fan and to talk to people that I, think are really interesting and talented. So this has just been absolutely the best. So thank you so much. You have to come back. If, when something comes out and you can actually talk about it, you have to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. You got it.
Before you go, where can people find you? Do you have a website? Are you on social media? Where can they?
Yes, my main social media outlet, or guilty pleasure, if you will, is at Viva Bianca on Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm also at Viva Bianca on Twitter, but I'm more active on Instagram. And then I have a website, which is www.vivalaviva.co.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much. I won't hold you up. Happy birthday. I hope you have a wonderful lunch.
Thanks, Michael.
Can't wait to talk with you again.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate
Well,
it.
you're so welcome. Yeah, this has been the best.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye. All right, so that was Viva Bianca, and she was so nice. That was a lot of fun. She put up with my idiotic questions about the risk, and she hung in there on her birthday. And listen, you guys weren't there, but I did try to talk her out of doing the interview today. I offered to reschedule once I found out that it was her birthday. That's terrible. That's terrible. But what a terrific, talented lady. That was so much fun. And she was, she came on and talked with me for probably 20 minutes before we even started interviewing. So that's on me too. So the interview may have went a little bit longer if I, had shut up and just started recording. So that's on me. But wow, that was so much fun. Really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for listening, for tuning in. you guys keep coming back, and I'm so grateful. I hope you're finding some interesting interviews, some fun stuff, the stuff that Brett and I do on our own. We have such a good time bringing our perspective on different subjects. So appreciate that you keep checking that out. Do us a favor, please go to Facebook, give us a like under MeisterCon. You can go to our website. It's still fairly new. It's meistercon.com. There's some terrific blogs from Brett on there. So a lot of good material. If you would like to help out the podcast, we could use a little bit of help. It's not easy. There's a lot of expenses that go into a podcast. We appreciate the help. You can go to patreon.com/MeisterCon. You'll get some early access and some bonus material there for your trouble. I should have told Viva, this is one of the first episodes that we have recorded at our new podcast studio. So that went off without a hitch. So we're grateful for that. Thank you, everybody, for all of your time, and that you choose us weekly and monthly. We really appreciate that. We'll talk to you again next time. I hope you enjoyed that. Bye.